Hey there, and welcome to That's Audacious, where we share entrepreneurial stories from amazing leaders to inspire and motivate you to be bold, brave, and audacious. I'm your host, Lauren Clemett, the brand navigator, here to share stories that will make you say, well, that's audacious. Hello and welcome to this episode of the That's Audacious podcast. Now, we've got something a little bit different for you here because I'm sharing this podcast with some awesome, amazing entrepreneurs who know everything there is to know about the speaking industry. And I'm not just interviewing them, I've actually partnered up with them. I'm one of their on-faculty coaches along with Tim Gard and Daniel Murray as well with Mainstage. And we just had an extraordinary opportunity to be in Austin, Texas, when it was about 102 Fahrenheit, really warm. It was an amazing spot to be there in summer, but we went there not just for the summer, we went there for the NSA, the National Speaker Association annual conference called Influence, where we met a huge number of speakers. I think there were close to 900 speakers there, an amazing experience over 3 days. But we're going to dig a little bit deeper into what we think is actually wrong with the speaking industry at the moment. We're going to drop a few truth bombs, and hopefully if you are a speaker or you want to be a professional speaker, you want to be well known and well paid for what you do, some of these things we share with you might help you get it right, because it's incredibly painful if you don't. So welcome to the podcast, the fabulous Marty Wilson, who's a CSP, is a professional speaker, been speaking for years, also an Australian Comedian of the Year, and the fabulous Michael Arnot from Encore Speakers. He's been booking speakers over thousands of gigs, hundreds of speakers over the last couple of decades. What they don't know about speaking isn't worth knowing. So it's awesome to have you guys on the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks, Lauren. Awesome to be here.
So firstly, can I just say, we've been going about 30 seconds and I haven't said anything yet. So
it's a world record.
The first thing I want to say is that there's actually nothing wrong with the speaking industry. All right. The problem is that the vast majority of speakers don't understand the speaking industry correctly. And that's the big problem. And there's a lot that goes on in the industry, what we think is the industry, which is really the peer group, as in speakers with other speakers, the internal industry, if you like. There's a lot that goes on in there, a lot of conversations that go on in there, a lot of myths that go on in there that do not translate out to the real world in terms of the actual industry. Because let's face it, it's the people that are paying the money that really run the industry, right? And so it's getting that connection between the clients and the speakers.
And I think that's the real point of difference that we have here at Mainstage, is that Michael learnt all this stuff from being on the side where you book speakers and you get aligned speakers to a conference, and I learnt it through the horrible pain of trial and error. When I was first starting my speaker industry, just doing it wrong and completely stuffing it up for about 4 years until I started diving in and working out how the business of speaking works. And so those two things together come together for Mainstage.
Yeah, I love it. Look, the two major truth bombs right there already, and we're only a couple of seconds into this podcast. It's not the industry that's broken. It's the fact that the speakers who actually are in the industry don't realize they're not the industry. It's the people booking you who pay your bills who are the industry. And also Marty's tip, which don't let that go past, 4 years of fart-assing about trying to figure it out. Whereas what you've learned and what you now teach through Mainstage, and I know I did the training back during COVID, and what I learned in that course and that program and going through the methodology 10x'd my business in terms of speaking. And I could have spent another probably 4 years messing around trying to figure it out myself. But you guys shared that and you've set it up as a framework that any speaker can follow, which is just awesome. So let's start first of all with Marty. I wanted to ask you about your impressions of being at the NSA, not necessarily about the event, because, it was an awesome event and there were some great speakers and there were some highlights and so on. More about your opinion or your feedback on the speakers that you were meeting there, the people attending the event, and what the biggest myths were that you think they were believing that they need to sort of have their eyes open to.
Well, I think there were two groups there. There were groups who were fairly established speakers, they had the little CSP ribbon and or CPAE and that sort of thing, and they thought they didn't need to learn anything at all about how the business of speaking works. And there were the newbies who had the first timer ribbon down the bottom of their lanyard, and they just walking around wide-eyed, and had no idea how the business worked. And when you tried to have a chat with them, they were like, I really don't even understand what you're saying. Like there was this real mix of people who their ideas about how things work was in such conflict with each other and there were, a number of times we'd talk to people there and we'd say, so, is your house in order was the phrase I was using. And they were like, oh yes. Like, well, are you getting the number of gigs that you would like, or are you charging the fees that you would like? Oh, no. But they didn't want to lean in and explore that. You had one person, particularly Michael, who was very keen to push back when you suggested that to her.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one speaker that had looked at the program and looked at all of the 9 stages in the booklet that we produced, and said that she knew exactly who she was, what her value was, and she'd spent 2 weeks doing our website, so she didn't want to go back there. So all she needed was the sales help, and I just suggested to her, would you like to sit down? We'll have a look at your website. And after looking at it for a good few minutes, it was very unclear, even what lane she was in, even what topic she really spoke on, never mind standing out as a speaker in the industry that would be different from another speaker that's out there. And I told her the story of Mark Denton.
Sorry to cut you off, but just in case there's a couple of newbies. So, for example, I'm a change speaker. There's leadership speakers, there's culture speakers, that sort of thing. That's the sort of thing Michael's talking about, which is the first thing they need to see on your website. Sorry, mate, just in case.
Yeah. I think anyone that's watching this, if you don't know what a speaking topic is, then we're not for you. Fair call. We help people who are serious about wanting to be a commercially successful speaker. And go back to what you said earlier, Lauren, about the professional speaking industry and the fact that it's the clients out there that book speakers that is the industry. I spoke to many that claim to be a speaker, because they've been booked to speak because they're a trainer, they're a coach, they're a consultant, and their client has asked them to come and speak at a more major event that they've got going on, or a wider group or whatever. And that's great, but that doesn't make you a professional speaker. Right? You could be a fantastic speaker. You can have an excellent talk. A lot of people that come from Toastmasters or maybe from a career in speaking, in terms of an employed career where they've been in front of people a lot. A lot of people that come from that come from a faith background. We got a lot of people who come from that way. They're standing up in front of people and they're speaking. I said, you could be as good as Tiger Woods at golf, but unless you're getting paid to do it, you're just a good amateur. And if you want a sustainable business, just waiting for a client to sporadically say, oh, you're an expert on this, can you come and do a talk on that? Well, you haven't got any control over that, and it's exhausting. I was just speaking to a speaker yesterday. She's doing fantastically well. She's done 9 gigs in July, right? Fantastic. But she's worn out because it was 5 different keynotes that she was delivering, because the client came to her because she's an expert in her area and asked her to speak on a topic that they decided they wanted. And in truth and gently, what I had to say is that that's not a keynote, right? That's actually a workshop. Now, the client might call it a keynote. It might last for 60 minutes. It might be in front of everybody. But if a client turns around and says, I've got a skill gap in this thing, and I want you to come and teach our people some skills in that thing, right? Then that's them saying, we know we've got a skill shortage. We need taught those skills. If you're teaching anything, then it's a workshop. It's not a keynote. So, but go back to this lady, I had a look at her website. She just wanted the sales part. And I talked to her about Mark Denton, a speaker who very, very successful in the UK for decades. He worked with us because, whilst he was still getting great feedback, whilst his content was still relevant to audiences, the market had shifted, but his positioning hadn't. And so his speaker business was spiraling down. Once he changed the way that he positioned what he did, once he highlighted the real value that people want in the market right now, and once he used the right sales techniques instead of relying on Google advertising, then, he was booked out. So it's about just turning the right knobs and putting all the bricks in the right place and making sure that you're articulating yourself to a market that wants you now. Being a great speaker does not necessarily equal a great speaker business.
Yeah, I love that, Mike.
And I think
so many. If you're playing this podcast, just return and replay those last little bits, because there were so many drops of gold in that around understanding your topic, understanding your niche, positioning yourself, the difference between a keynote speaker and an industry speaker or a workshop speaker. And also, as Marty was saying before, the difference between a really good presentation and someone who's great on stage and has a great stage presence. You can make people laugh, you can make people cry, but you can't get booked and you're not getting repeat bookings. There's a problem, there's a gap. The big question I've got for both of you is, did you notice a difference between the American speaking industry and the speakers there? We're talking about the speakers specifically, not the people who book them, and Australia, Europe, Asia, because we've also been to we've been to GSS, we've been to the other events in Asia as well. Did you notice anything different about the speakers, Marty?
Oh, gotta guard my words carefully. Like I think some of the speakers we met at NSA were less open to learning, less open to being told, you don't have all the answers. Like if you don't have the speaker business that you want, you've got a knowledge gap, and you need to accept that if you're going to move forward, if you're going to get the business that you want. And I think there's a fair bit of ego in speaking. Absolutely. Like, I have a pretty healthy ego. But the results, like the scoreboard is the scoreboard. If you're not getting what you want from your speaker business, then you need to learn some stuff, and you need to put your hand up and be able to say, okay, I need to have a chat with some people and try and work out where the thing is. Because most of the people and this is most speakers all around the world, this is an endemic thing all around the world, is all I need is more eyeballs. All I need is better marketing. All I need is to know the right person to introduce me to the people. And what we say is the thing that and this sort of comes in with, slots back into my history as well. My original keynote was really good. I got a standing ovation from a room full of professional speakers, and I'd come from the world of stand-up comedy, where there's a circuit. And if you're really good, if your on-stage product is really good, people find you, the work finds you. And that is just not the case when it comes to the speaking industry. There is no speaker circuit. You have to you have to go out and find the gigs. You have to position yourself in a way that the people who book speakers find you attractive, and you have to do the work to find those people and sell yourself to those people. This was one of those things that really landed for us, wasn't it, Michael? Like, the idea that there is no speaker circuit. Like, that's just
And Michael, did it surprise you? I know we asked that question a bit, raise your hands if you think there's a speaking circuit and I just need to get an agent. And so many people thought that there was actually a circuit. Did that surprise you in the States? Is it the same? Is that worldwide, or is it more prevalent there?
Yeah, look, I think it is worldwide. I mean, for me, I didn't, whilst I agree with Marty, generally speaking, there wasn't any difference between the speakers in the US and anywhere else in terms of what their problems are, in terms of what they were looking for, and in terms of what would help them. But I think they're generally, and I see it as a positive thing, right? In particularly in Australia, to a lesser degree in the UK, if you're really good at what you do, there's a little bit of tall poppy syndrome, right? So you can feel a little bit of, I don't know if I should really, should I, maybe I'm getting a bit too big for my boots. I don't want people to think that I'm whatever. And also on the flip side, people that say, we'll put it this way. There are people that will say to you, when you say, I want to be a keynote speaker, I'm going to be up on that main stage. There will be people that say to you, you'll never do that. Right? You'll never be one of those. And then you go and achieve it. And then they say, you've forgotten where you came from, too big for your boots, right? There's an element of that. Whereas I think there's less of that in the US. In the US, people recognize that if you want to be successful, you should surround yourself with other people that are successful too, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, then you're not growing. But coming back to what Marty said, whilst they recognize that, there is that kind of, oh, well, if I'm going to be on the stage, I can't be seen as learning because I'm the one that's teaching, right?
Mm.
And that's where there's like this real disconnect between, you know, what a main stage keynote speaker does and what someone who is a workshopper or a seminar speaker or a trainer does. You see, because it does a totally different job. And I say this oftentimes, and people sometimes think that I'm a bit crazy when I do. And certainly in the US, one thing that was different is that they can't control their face with their emotions as much as maybe other countries can. So there were a lot of people that I could see completely confused or disagreed with what I was saying until I got through what I was saying in the audience, which was great. It was great. But, you know, the more superficial your keynote is, the more you're going to get paid.
Mm.
I'm going to say that again. The more superficial,
people, Michael. Yeah, that when you said that, I could see lots of people just being blown.
Yeah.
What? Say that again.
Yeah, the more superficial your keynote is, the more you're going to get paid. You see, out there, we saw the very closing speaker was Tim Gard. He closed the entire thing, right? And I've known Tim for a long, long time, as is Marty, and Tim is an on-faculty coach with us at Mainstage. And everybody loves Tim because he's a great guy, but two, he has been in this industry an awfully long time. You know, what he doesn't know about speaking isn't worth knowing. And he's a fantastic speaker. And lots of people in that room would give their right arm to be anywhere near as successful as he is. Now, when you saw the story that he delivered, when you saw the mini keynote that he did at the end, you know, it wasn't a big story about climbing a mountain or winning a gold medal. It was about him getting on a plane and his interaction that he had with this irate guy about warm nuts, right? Like, it's just an everyday interaction. And, you know, the vast majority of what he said of his 10 minutes, maybe even 8 or 9 minutes of it, was all story.
Mm.
The key learning point that he gave us was that if you have a bad day, you need to just tap your forehead and say bummer and let it go, right? If you have something good that happens, you need to put your arms out in front of you and say woohoo, right? So it's woohoo or bummer, right? What he's teaching us is that if we ruminate on one thing that's gone wrong in the day, it's going to ruin the rest of our day.
Yeah.
And also, if we don't celebrate the little wins and have gratitude for the little things that happen, then again, we're not going to have a good day, right? So it's about putting yourself in a more positive frame of mind. How much more can we be productive? How much more successful can we be if we're just in a better mood? Yeah. So is that mind-blowingly different stuff to what we've ever heard before? No. Is there anyone in that audience that probably doesn't already know those concepts? No. But when it's delivered in a way that you're taking them on that journey, that they can not see anything past what he's describing at the time, you're literally on the plane with him when he's delivering that story. It means it has huge impact when he delivers the line, when he says this is what we need to do, the bummer, the woohoo, and we remember it. And a beautiful phrase that he uses is, it's not good enough to be memorable, you need to be unforgettable. You're not going to be unforgettable by machine gunning people with 17 steps on how to have more gratitude, right? But what you can do is you can absolutely blow them away with a story that we can all relate to, that lands as something that's really memorable, and even better, we can never forget. That's where the value in a keynote is. So when I say it has to be superficial, I mean in terms of the depth of content, right? That depth of content, he's not teaching us the 17 steps on how to do it. He's just moving us emotionally close enough to the place where we decide we're going to do something about it. And that's the power of a keynote. And that's the difference. And I think the difficulty that a lot of speakers have, because if you come from consultancy land or training land or program land, where you're really proud of all of this stuff that you've created over here, and you want to try and put that on the keynote stage, you want to show that stuff off, right? The problem is that you have to take it right up to the concept level so that it really makes impact on the stage. And that's where you become a speaker like Tim Gard, like Marty Wilson, like you are becoming, Lauren,
I
like,
think that's
like
the real
Jeff
difference.
Ram, like Nigel Risner, like Michael McQueen, like and Amanda Stee. It's all of those speakers who have figured out that it's telling the stories, that taking people on a journey and moving them emotionally, that makes them want to be part of that journey, and that they can resonate with it. So,
and that's one of the biggest that whole part about Tim Gard is really interesting, because if you're new to speaking and going, yes, I want to be a Tim Gard, I want to be a booked, I want to be on those big stages and so on, it's all very well for Tim Gard. He's well known now, right? So he's built that brand, he's built that on-stage product that people buy. And I think one of the big things that I noticed was how few speakers, and this is worldwide, I think it was amplified a bit more in the States, because I was really spending a lot of time talking to all of them, whereas the other ones I was running around catching up with friends as well, and in GSS, and there were lots of new people I got to meet in NSA, was the fact that nobody understands the difference between a keynote speaker and an industry speaker. And you've just explained exactly what that is. A keynote speaker isn't there to share, like you say, the 17 ways of doing a certain thing. They're there to keynote. They're there to set up the tone for the event, to open people's brains and their hearts and minds to learn what's going to come from the industry speakers and the workshops and the breakout rooms, or to close out an event and make sure that whatever they've learnt at that event, they're now going to go and implement, because they're now switched on. They're now engaged. They're now really aligned with, hey, I can do this because I've just listened.
And that's why we call our program Mainstage, because the whole thing, we teach the Mainstage method, and that's how to set up your speaker business so that you only attract and seek out those big opening keynotes, those big closing keynotes, sometimes the after lunch or the after dinner, those big ones that people build a whole event around. Those are the ones that pay the sort of fees that everyone really wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed that as well. I've seen that a lot with the way, as you say, Michael, that I'm developing my speaking business. And the more high level superficial I can get, the more people remember it. They go, yep, we'll have that, and we'll run everything else on the agenda around what you're talking about. And it makes such a difference. Then you can get a bit more egotistical about it. Then you can start to go, you know what? Yeah, I'm only available on these days. This is my fee. Do you know what I mean? But until you figure that out, until you work out what is your thing, what is your onstage product. And I think, Michael, one of the things I noticed was when you ask the room, you know, how important is it to build your profile? And Marty's already said, you know, just get more eyeballs on your website, just advertise a bit more. When you mentioned this onstage product, people sort of went, hang on, I've never heard anyone talk about that before. Tell me more. So maybe give us a bit of an insight for people listening on what it means to put the product on the pedestal rather than you as the speaker.
Yeah, I mean, this comes from the idea that, speakers are very passionate about what they do, right? And that's why we don't take our cultural responsibility lightly here. But what you need to tap into is what the client's passionate about. And that's not necessarily what the people in the room are going to get from it either, right? Because the client is not the audience, right? The client is the person that signs the check. So what do they really want, right? What do they really want from a keynote speaker? People always ask me, the biggest question I get asked as an agent is, oh, what's the hot topics right now? And I'm like, there aren't hot topics, right? In keynote speaking, all right? And people go, oh, hang on, Michael, you're talking loads of rubbish, and, you know, it's AI at the moment, it's this and it's that. And whilst, yes, that kind of tone does come across, and they're the themes that people have for events, maybe, and some of the stuff that they talk about, that doesn't necessarily mean that they want an AI expert speaker, right? What it means is that they want someone who's going to come in the room and is going to change the mood, that's going to change the thought pattern, that's going to open people up, that's going to get people motivated, or that's going to get them focused, you know, whatever it is that they need to achieve. And with that in mind, can you see how it doesn't really matter who you are, right? Unless you're a celebrity, right? And the phone's ringing off the hook, right? In which case you shouldn't be listening to this, and you should be going on stage and earning your $100,000 or whatever, right? unless that's happening for you, then your name is never going to do it. And the thing that I saw at Influence was that there was, like there is everywhere, there was so many speakers that were all clambering to just be the better speaker than someone else. And the onstage product is about two things. Yes, it's about content, and it's also about your delivery. Now, that's not to mean that everyone has to be a rah-rah speaker. Not everyone has to be funny like Marty. Not everyone has to be, funny like Tim. Not everybody has to be, massively motivational like Tony Robbins or something like that. In fact, I don't particularly like that style personally of speaker. But it's more about understanding that what you deliver on that stage is not you. It's almost like looking at your keynote and your keynote business as if it was a book, right? So the authors out here would probably resonate with this. And even if you haven't written a book, think about it. You could pour your content into a book, and that's something that you can kind of hold over here, right? And say, this is a product, this is a thing that I'm selling. I'm really proud of it, and I know it's awesome. But the book has to have a title, right? It's not just your name, unless, again, you're a celebrity, right? If you're a celebrity, you can just put your name on the front because it's an autobiography. Poof, done, easy, right? Same in speaking. You can't just have your name there, because if you haven't, if you're not famous, no one's going to want your autobiography. We don't care. What we don't care what you're passionate about. We don't care what mission that you're on. We care what you're going to do in the room that's going to make the people in the room passionate about our mission as a client. That's what we care about. And the onstage product is what's going to do it. The way that you deliver it, and the key things that you say that's going to move their people. That's what they're looking for, and that's the onstage product. So just like a book, your keynote has to be a product. It has to be something there that people can see, that catches interest. Yeah, that's got catchy title, that's got chapters of content that we see. Oh yes, that's a type of thing that we really need to have our people hear.
I had
that's what's important.
One of our coaching clients, Mo Hawk, that you both know really well, was on one of our coaching calls last night, and this absolutely finally dropped into his mind for him, because he's a guy, a cancer survivor, who was told he needs to raise a couple of £100,000 sterling to survive cancer, and he did, and he's still hanging around. And his book is called Absurd Hope, and and he was saying, like, he's really struggling to pick up the phone and reach out to people. And I said, mate, would you recommend your book? And he said, yeah, I know, it's got fantastic. And I said, well, it's exactly the same, mate. And you can see, he said, I know you guys have told me that so many times, but it's finally landed just then when you said it to me. Like, I'm selling the medicine that's in my book. I'm not selling the Mo Hawk, the keynote speaker, and that sort of stuff. And it makes it so much easier if you create this onstage product that's all the what's the word? Thinking not good enough, thinking you're not good enough. God, the
imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. That's the word for it. Yeah. Like all that, you could see it just drop away from his face, and he's like, oh, I get it. Like, I'm selling the onstage product. I'm not selling me.
Yeah.
Just to make it really, really clear, what I mean by this, right, is if your keynote, your onstage product is strong enough, right, which essentially is an overarching grand high thesis of the way that you think about your topic area, and underneath that, a series of takeaways, a series of topics, a series of themes, a series of concepts that you deliver on stage, backed up by stories in the way that you wrap them up, right? And packaged together, just like a book would be, so that it makes sense to people, right? If that's strong enough, not only does it mean that you can be hyper successful as a keynote speaker, but you can almost be superfluous. Right? So Nigel Risner, for example, a speaker from the UK, he has an absolutely brilliant keynote product, which is called It's a Zoo Around Here. And it's the premise that you need to understand that different people are wired different ways. Different people are like different animals in a zoo, and you can't feed a dolphin the same as you would feed a monkey, right? Because you're not going to motivate them the same way. And so understanding that is key to it. So he says you need to become a zookeeper and feed the animals in your organization the different foods that they need. That's the very basic premise of it, and that's what a great keynote product should be, by the way. Right? It shouldn't take more than 20-30 seconds to explain the entire thing in layman's terms as well, right? But the thing is, he's got that now, I think, into 20-30 different speakers who pay him a royalty every year to deliver that talk. The book that accompanies it has been translated into several different languages. Another one, Ben Hunt Davis. He's a former Olympic rower, and he came up with a keynote, not relying on the fact he won a medal, not relying on the story, but coming up with a series of takeaways that he learned on his journey to greatness that he shares with people so they can use them on their journey to greatness, right? It's those light bulb moments, those things that he said, oh, from now on, I'm always going to remember to do this. Well, he turns that into something that they can use. And, you know, that's the method. That's the part of one big part of what the Mainstage method is about, helping you create that for yourself. Now, Ben Hunt Davis, if you want to book him, he's about 30,000-40,000 pounds, something like that, last time I checked. He's also got 5 or 6 people in his organization that also deliver it that you can book for 10,000. To deliver the same talk, because what his talk is titled is, will it make the boat go faster? Right? The premise that everything they did as an Olympic team, they always asked themselves, will that make the boat go faster? What they ate, the pillow they used, the supplements they used, the training regimes, you know, all of it. It was like, right, well, will that make them? And if it not, they didn't do it because it was just fluff.
So,
so that's the important part of it. It can be bigger than you. It can be so big, right, that you're not even required anymore.
Exactly. And this is I think one of the big mind-blowing moments I saw when people were learning about this at NSA and also at GSS when we did the same thing, and I'm sure you saw it as well in Singapore when you were there as well, was when you understand that it's not about just you delivering it from stage. It's what happens a week later, a month later, 6 months later, 9 months later, in that workplace, in that organization, when people are still asking, will it make the boat go faster? You know, and you're just being a monkey. I'm an elephant. You need to talk to me. You know, if they can take that onstage product back into their organization, and
that's circling back to that wonderful thing Michael said before about your keynote has to be, the more superficial it is, the more you'll get paid for it. It's not superficial. It's superficial in terms of depth of content, not lasting value to the organization.
Absolutely.
Like that, and it's actually where the lasting value comes from, raising it up to a concept level so people, I can forget that. I can never forget that.
Never forget.
Now, listen, what I'd like to say
here,
what I'd like to say here is, Lauren, you know, is that a lot of people get to this point and they think, wow, that sounds like a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where it just, like, I think people just need to make the decision. Because if what you're going to do is just wait for gigs to come at you because you know that you've got good content, you know you're a good expert, you know you're well known in your field, and that's what you want to wait for, then that's fine. Right? But you have to appreciate that whatever percentage of your turnover is currently speaking is going to remain the same forever. Right? You're not, one day you're not going to trip over some open door that's going to land you on the speaking circuit and whoosh, that's it, you're away. Right? It doesn't work like that. And because you're all, on the one side you've got clients, on the other side you've got speakers. The vast majority of people that book keynote speakers are not professional conference organizers. They're not in associations for event organizers. They don't go to a lot of conferences themselves. Some of them have never even been to a conference. They've only, you know, they're just you know, co-opted volunteers on a committee, and they've got a day job, right? So that being the case, they're looking online, and all the speakers out there all look the same. Do the research yourself. Go and look at 20 speakers' websites this afternoon. All right, they all basically say the same stuff. Most speakers say the same stuff. And why? Because we think, oh, well, we'll do what the successful speakers do and we'll copy what they do. if you really want a keynote speaking business, if you really want to genuinely make more money and you want to be on the big stages, it is a business, and it's a totally different business to everything else that you're running. And unless you invest in that business, and I'm not talking about necessarily coming to our program or financially or whatever, but what I mean is, unless you invest in working on it, then it's not going to happen. It's not just going to happen from nowhere. It's not like, oh, well, you know, they're successful because just one day it happened to them. It doesn't work like that. And I mean, even Nigel Risner or Tim Gard, right? Lots of people know Tim Gard. Next time you meet him, next time you see him, next time you talk to him, if you ever bump into him, ask him, oh, so what was the day where you never needed to pick the phone up again, or never needed to do any outreach, or never needed to do any sales calls? Yeah, that must have been 20 years ago for you. It just must all just roll in. You know, people just send him checks in the post on a daily basis. He just sits there swimming in them in his bed, right? No, it's hard work.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard.
It's funny, isn't it?
It's good work. It's exciting. It's brilliant.
It's so
rewarding.
worth it.
And you can make an absolute truckload of money from it as well. But that doesn't come rolling in on its own.
And the thing I think that really sets us apart is that it's even harder work when you're working on the wrong things.
Yeah.
Well, it's useless work, Marty. It's useless work.
It's
you know, people get frustrated. That's why people are out there frustrated, because they're like, well, hang on, I've heard people say, you know, I've been on these programs, I've been on that. Someone just finished our program recently. She's been a speaker for, God, it must be 20 years or more. She's a board member of PSA. She's a award-winning speaker, hyper successful, and I've actually got a call with her in 40 minutes, and she said, so Michael, do you know what it is? I've been a speaker for such a long time, and I've done all of the programs, like all of them. And she said, but it's not until I did yours that I really understood what the difference was. What I really understood the difference was in terms of, one, the business between being a workshopper and someone with programs and content and sought out for that content, like a real, you know, she is well known for her content and for her programs. But what the difference is between that and a keynote speaking business, and also what the difference actually is in terms of what you do on the stage with it as well.
Yeah.
And this is from someone who herself has coached speakers on these topics, you know. It's sometimes you just need that external view from someone who understands the industry that can say, oh, you know, you've been doing this the whole time. What about this over here? Because, you know, you're taught and you're told, and people reinforce all the time, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you need to do the other, and you need a podcast, and you need a TikTok channel, and you need, you know, all of this stuff. Paul McGee, brilliant speaker from the UK. He's got 2.5 million followers on TikTok or something, and he's, you know, he does these fantastic. He's really good at video, actually, very good at video. And I said, well, how many gigs have you got from TikTok? He went, none. I said, well, hang on, you've got like 2.5 million views or something. He says, yeah. He says, the difference is, Michael, right, is that Chinese students don't buy keynote speakers.
Yeah, no.
Right, it's vanity. It's vanity, right? Unless it's targeted, unless you've got control over it, then yes, it can add to, profile can help, but you've got to profile you doing the business.
Yeah.
And you've got to get the business to get the profile.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
you can't just poof out of nowhere, you know.
This was another thing I noticed, and another, because we're coming to the end of the podcast, and I want to just quickly lay this one as well, was people don't know what they don't know, right? And we talked a little bit about how you're almost in a better position if you are a little bit more humble, and you're thinking, you know, even if I've got some gigs and I've started, or I'm a CSP, or I'm doing it, but I'm not getting. What's that title of that book? I don't know what I want, but I know it's not this. You know, I know this is too painful. I'm not getting paid enough. I'm not getting booked. I'm getting asked to speak for exposure, all those sorts of things. I need to change this. You've just got to sit for a moment and go, right, I'm prepared to learn. But you have to choose the right people to learn from. And the thing that I admire most about Mainstage is that it's not just a training program or a format. It's actual knowledge from people who've been there and done that. And the cool thing is, very, very well-known speakers like Tim Gard did the program, right? He didn't just join us as our on-faculty coach. He actually went, I'm going to learn the program first before I even have anything to do with it. And the people you're talking about who've been around in the speaking industry for donkey's ages come along and go, I never knew this. How did I not know this?
Yeah.
So,
and Lauren, one thing that you've said there is really, it's actually the irony's just sort of struck me. You got a keynote speaker that's standing on a stage that is expecting a room full of sometimes senior business people running multi-hundreds of million-dollar companies and, people who are clever people, right? And the keynote speaker is standing there expecting them to listen to them and learn from them. Can you see the irony that they're not prepared to learn themselves? Yeah, they're expecting their audience to. In fact, it's not irony, it's arrogance. Like, how arrogant have you got to be to say, no, I know everything that I know, and I'm never going to. I said to there's another speaker who he's always putting stuff on about how he's developing his business and so on and so forth on LinkedIn. And I said to him, has a client ever mentioned to you about you putting these posts on, about you? Because he's mentioned us a lot of times and thanked us, which is great, but it's his implementation of it that's got him where he is. It's his hard work on it that's got him where he is. But I said, has a client ever said anything to you about it? And he said, yeah, but they have. But only positive, because in me showing them that I'm investing in myself and being the best keynote speaker that I can possibly be for them, they recognize that I'm keeping myself as contemporary. I'm honing my skills. I'm getting as good as I can possibly be, rather than being someone who's done it this way for 10 years and is going to continue doing it this way, regardless of what the client wants.
Yeah.
And he's actually got more interest from clients because he's put stuff like that on LinkedIn than standing there trying to profess and push out all of these things that he's passionate about, which the client just doesn't care about.
Doesn't care about anyway. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, I've got some truth bombs today, and it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know this about the industry. I didn't know this about speaking. I've been bashing my head up against a wall and it's painful and I want to stop doing that, and it's the definition of insanity, isn't it, to keep doing the same thing that doesn't work. I'll just pay more money on Google ads or whatever it is, spend more money on
eyeballs. Just get eyeballs
on my website. Exactly. The Mainstage method is an extraordinary process that's been built by people in the industry who've worked as behind the curtain, if you like, in terms of being bookers, being agents, booking speakers, understanding what people want from speakers in order to book them, from being on stage, from delivering, from being a professional speaker that gets rebooked, well paid, and so on. You need to check this program out. The Mainstage method extracts your uniqueness and helps you build the presentation you should already be known for, and shows you how to sell it so that you can become booked and rebooked and get out of the breakout room and the workshop and onto those main stages, so that you're well paid and well known and wanted for what you do. So please reach out to Michael or Marty. There'll be links at the bottom of this podcast to help you find your way through this. Highly recommend the methodology. I've done it myself, and it was extraordinary for my speaking business. I'm still learning. I don't think we ever stop learning. I think if you can be a little bit humble as a speaker and realize that actually putting your hand on your heart and saying there's some stuff I don't know, and there's a reason I know that is because it's not working, is I'm still not getting booked on those stages and I'm seeing other people stages I should be on, then fix it. Don't wait around for 4 years or however long it takes to find it. Have a chat to the guys at Mainstage. Be really honest with yourself about what sort of speaker you want to be, because it's not a magic wand. There's no such thing. It's work, and you want to invest the right time and the right money with the right people in order to get your business.
Yeah, it's important that, Lauren, actually you say that, because we don't promise to make it easy. We don't promise to in 30 days you're going to have a multi-million speaker business. What we do promise is, though, that we make it simple and we give a structured step-by-step method to follow, so that the work that you are doing, which will be hard work, actually bears fruit and actually gives you results. So Yeah, that's what we promised to do.
Absolutely guarantee that by the time you finish our program, the gap between where you are now and the speaking business you want, because you decide what you want, will not be a lack of knowledge. It will just be how hard and fast you can implement the steps that we tell you to do.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it. So get in touch with the guys at Mainstage. Thank you so much for all the people that we met at NSA and all the other people that we know who are, on the journey to becoming a CSP or a professional speaker. If you can take out of today just one little truth bomb that'll help you, then we're away. We're on a journey, because you do deserve it. You've got amazing skills and talents. You've got a lot of content that you do want to offer, but you just need to position yourself the right way and create that on-stage product. You do deserve to be well-known, well-paid and wanted. Get on and do it. Thanks so much for listening to the That's Audacious podcast. Remember, there's no place for modesty in business, and you do deserve to be well-known, well-paid and wanted. For more episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on your favourite channel or follow us online. The links are in the description below.